We continue our discussion on the Conrad Murray trial. Coming up in this half hour, our team of Hal Eisner, Leo Terrell, Anthony Falangetti will answer some of your questions. Anesthesiologist Dr. Rebecca Carr will be back in studio with us. And with the prosecution winding down its case, the defense getting ready for its turn, we'll take a look at what's ahead in the trial.
Jurors were not in court today for the Michael Jackson doctor trial, but there was still some action in the courtroom. A judge held a short scheduling meeting with lawyers from both sides to discuss what was coming up. The defense plans to call about 15 witnesses when it makes its case starting next week. The defense hopes to wrap up its case by next Friday. Now, due to the death in the family of a current witness, Dr. Stephen Schaefer, trial may be dark on Monday. The prosecutors, David Walgren and Deborah Brazil, were fined $60 each for being late to the hearing. Just a side note there. Hal
Eisner, Leo Terrell, Anthony Falangetti, thanks for being back with us.
Pleasure.
Twitter questions, guys. Here we go. Okay. First one, Hugo Valdez. Is there anything Dr. Murray's team can do at this point to rebuild any sort of credibility he has left with the public?
Oh, that's a Leo question if I ever heard one.
Well, I'll guarantee you, first he has to get acquitted, or, you know, that's the first thing. And then he has to really come out and be an upfront and honest individual and tell the public. I don't know about going on a book tour or whatever, but he has to go out and tell the public what he actually did in the relationship. But he has to get acquitted. He has no credibility if he gets convicted.
Now, that audio recording seemed to give him some of that. You felt compassion from him.
There was compassion, tremendous compassion. In fact, a lot of people believe that tape helped his case, but those experts turned it around on him because they kept using it against him.
Yeah, but Anthony, can you try to build this credibility with the public during the trial?
Oh, absolutely. You start with your own experts. You start giving a different viewpoint from expert doctors who know this topic, especially a propofol expert, and then you finish with him on the stand. He gets to rebuild his credibility himself and look at the jurors and look at the public and say, I tried, and nothing pains me more than my patient being dead.
Do you see Leo over there shaking his head no?
Hey, listen, let me tell you right now, the decision of Dr. Murray to go on trial depends on his experts. His experts have to provide a key, a gateway for him to come up there and back up what they say. If they don't provide that, he does not go on the stand.
Conrad Murray may not be able to withstand cross-examination.
Exactly.
That may be his biggest challenge here.
I disagree with that, and here's why. The defense knows that his tape has been out there since the moment they walked him in, and they know his position. They also have known all about all these witnesses and all this testimony for months. If he's not prepared to take that witness stand, then they haven't done their job, number one. And number two, more importantly, let's be clear, he was sympathetic on that tape. He's got a great soft voice. He sounds like a caring guy. He has the ability to explain things, and he has nothing to lose. All he has to do is be consistent and explain those minor details.
How often does that happen where you have the suspect take the stand?
Well, I'll tell you right now, it depends on if it's if it's desperation time. If the defense team believes that he can only save himself by going up there and trying to win the jury. But I got news for you. 20 years of practicing law, the biggest mistake in this case was for him to walk into that police station or give that interview 2 days after the incident happened. That was a massive mistake.
And you know, everybody I've talked to has said the same thing, that you don't have to talk to police.
Absolutely not.
And so why do it if you don't have to?
Correct.
And that's a point that we've talked about much in the last couple of weeks.
Well, we've talked an awful lot. Junior Levis, let's go to Junior Levis. He's got a question on Twitter. Actually, a Facebook question. Why would Dr. Conrad Murray record Michael so high on drugs? And I'm not sure that's the right word.
Yeah, remember when we heard Michael slurring?
Record him, the audio recording. So high on drugs. Do you think he had bad intentions?
Yeah, think back to that tape where he was so out of it.
Let me sit here and tell you right now, that to me was something like some type of closet information he could have used against Jackson later on if things went south. I find that recording of that tape a manipulative move on Murray's part to keep something against Jackson. I don't like that.
Let me take the other side.
Okay.
Let me be Dr. Murray. I'm going to record my patient and then show my patient how he sounds when he's on drugs.
Well, that's been the point they've been trying to make.
Say, look, you need to get off this.
And how do you explain this? Back to my point, how does the defense explain it? Because Leo's right, it looks horrible. How do you fix that in front of 12 jurors? He takes the stand, he explains it. He takes the stand and tells a story about how he cared for him so much, and the only way he can get through to somebody so committed to these drugs is to record him and show
No,
him how
no.
he
But let me sit here and
sounds.
say
He's
this.
got to explain it.
But this is the same Michael Jackson who said, "Look, according to Murray, I need this. I need this drug. I need this. I can't fall asleep." And I think you talked about this with Dr. Kerr, and you made the question too, Carlos. You do what's right for the client as a doctor. You don't feel sympathetic to him if the help is contradictory to his condition as a doctor.
Have this vision of your interview yesterday. I think it was you, Anthony, who said we haven't heard the other side yet. You're waiting to hear the other side.
Okay.
That's it. This case isn't over until all the evidence is in.
This case isn't over, but the point is, and we've talked about this extensively, if the prosecution doesn't prove its case, and the burden of prosecution, the burden of this case is totally on the backs of the prosecution. The defense doesn't have to prove anything. So in effect, I'm going to ask both of you, in effect, if they haven't proven their case, at least by the end of Dr. Schaefer, and I could probably say by now, well, then where are we? I mean, they have to prove their case.
If the prosecution, I believe, had put on enough evidence to show that Dr. Murray, gross negligence, caused the death of Michael Jackson. The question is whether or not the jury bought it. If the jury hasn't bought it, then, of course, the defense don't have to do anything. Just sit back and say, hey, submit the case to the jury.
At this point, have you bought it?
I believe, yes, the case has strong enough. I think there's answers, but if the jurors took the case as is, I think they could find Murray guilty of the charge.
All right, we're going
Let's
to go
take a
to
look
another
at
question.
this Twitter question, or this Facebook, also. Shannon Butler, why is the defense arguing over whether Michael Jackson gave himself the last dose when in his first testimony he stated after he gave MJ the milk, he watched him fall asleep, and then he went to the restroom. I don't think she means testimony, but in that tape that we heard, the
LAPD interview, I think is what she's referring to. And I think right there the point is that Dr. Murray says he gave him propofol. Then the question that the defense is trying to throw out there is what happened immediately after that.
Right.
And she's trying to say, why are they doing that? Because
their whole argument is that what Murray gave Jackson did not kill him. It must have come from Michael Jackson's own conduct. And that's the inference that the defense wants to put out there. They haven't proven that yet, but that's what they want to argue.
Somewhere in the cocktail.
Somewhere in the cocktail.
Because
Somewhere.
Their
Because
argument.
the dose that Conrad Murray gave, according to the defense, is not big enough to cause this result. So what could have happened to cause the result had to be something more, had to be additional. And we haven't heard the evidence.
Yes, we have, because we heard Conrad Murray say, drip, drip, drip. Remember the fight between the expert and Conrad Murray defense team, and they were going back and forth, and that defense attorney was losing because the expert said, no, it's on page 62. Murray said drip,
and
drip.
A drip
Well,
keeps
let's talk
it
to
going.
Carr about that.
Well, let's
when
bring
she
out
comes over
Carr.
here in a few minutes.
Yeah, and she did
Carr's gonna
explain
get it
that.
next.
She did talk about how one could possibly increase a dose or get more medication going if they were to wake up. All right, take this Twitter
All right,
question.
let's go to this. Let's read it off the screen there with you on Twitter. As
Abby Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, as I'm
that's
a
the Twitter
CPR
name.
certified, I'm just a medical assistant. Why wouldn't this doctor know how to administer CPR?
Dr. Carr, we need her
The
again.
famous one hand on the phone, one hand on the chest.
Right, but
routine.
what he tried to portray in the LAPD interview was that he did know CPR.
Right.
And what his attorneys, particularly Michael Flanagan, has said is, of course he knows CPR. The illusion that he didn't know CPR came from the testimony that had to do with the security guard that came up and said, he, while doing one-handed chest compression, said, does anybody know CPR? That somehow had gotten translated out to everybody that he didn't know CPR. And I don't think as somebody who's followed this case, that I have that doubt in my mind anymore. He knows CPR.
Ask Dr. Carr when she comes up here, can the decision by Murray to give Michael Jackson, attempt to revive Michael Jackson before the 911, was that a reasonable act on his part? If she comes up with that type of answer, that's a great defense argument. You hear me, defense? Raise that argument.
But you do agree, though, that at this point, that notion that he didn't know CPR...
Oh, that's gone. That's gone. Totally
Okay, so what was meant by that line, does anyone know CPR?
Well, no, what Flanagan says he was saying was that anybody that knows CPR knows two people are better than one.
Yeah, he
and so he was trying to see if somebody else knew it, so there would be two people doing it.
Right. He needed help at the time, clearly.
Okay, we'll be right back. We've heard a lot this week about the proper use of propofol. Coming up, we'll talk to anesthesiologist Dr. Rebecca Carr about how the drug was used in this case and how it can be used safely.
The Michael Jackson Doctor Trial.